Hey friends, I wanted to share some thoughts today about goal setting, about setting goals and achieving your goals. Frequently, people hire coaches because they want help achieving their goals. It seems like it should be a pretty straightforward thing, right? You decide you want to do something and then you go and you do it. But for some reason, we have a lot of trouble with that. One of the issues we run into as human beings is we set these lofty, giant goals and then we're not quite sure how to achieve them, or they very quickly become overwhelming. Oftentimes when I'm working with a client and we set goals for them, or they decide on an action step they want to take for that week, their first reaction is sometimes, oh, that seems so simple. Or it seems too small. Shouldn't we aim bigger? So one of the things that I do as a coach is I help you break down your big lofty goals into manageable bite-sized chunks so that you can achieve them. So I just wanted to take a moment and talk a little bit about goal setting and then share some of my process that I support clients in when they want to achieve goals. So we help them set and achieve goals that they then actually achieve for themselves, which is always fun and exciting to do. So I just wanted to share some thoughts about that. And then offer you some tips and pointers around setting and achieving your own goals. Okay, so first off, when you're thinking about a goal that you want to achieve for yourself, and maybe it's getting in shape or something health related, eating better, going to the gym more, or maybe it's a career goal. I want to get a certain job, or I want to go to grad school, or maybe it's a life goal. I want to find a boyfriend or a girlfriend. There's all kinds of goals that we have in our life, and so easily they become something we're determined to do one day, and then the next day we get overwhelmed by them, or we forget about them. Like New Year's resolutions, right? By February, they're gone basically. So there's a few things that you can do to help set yourself up for success so that you actually set goals that are aligned with what's important to you and then achieve those goals. The first thing that I suggest that you do is to really think about why. This might be the most important piece of goal setting, is why. Why is this particular goal that you want to set for yourself important to you? What's driving it? What's motivating your desire to achieve this thing? Allow yourself some space to explore what's really motivating the goal. If it's coming from a place of fear, it may be hard to follow through on that goal in the end. If it's fear of what will happen if you don't do this thing, I won't be successful if I don't, publish my book. That's an example I use a lot, right? I've got to publish my book because otherwise I won't leave a mark. My life won't mean anything, right? Those kinds of things are driven by fear. So it may be hard to do the legwork over time that it's going to take to achieve that goal because you're going to be beating yourself up all along the way. If something is driven by fear, then it is not an intrinsic conscious goal for yourself. Another reason might be if it's just the goal you're setting is a huge goal. It's something really, really big. Like I'm going to get into grad school and become a doctor, or I'm going to start a family, and I'm not married right now. I'm not dating anyone. Like some of these big, big goals. It can really easily feel overwhelming when we set our goals at some big, giant kind of amorphous concept. So that can be kind of overwhelming and can get in our way. We're not even sure where to start, right? Sometimes that can be overwhelming. Another reason that we're sometimes not successful at achieving our goals is they're actually not that important to us. We may think they are. Maybe it's, my parents will be disappointed in me if I don't, earn a certain amount of money by the time I'm 30 or something. But I'm struggling to earn that much money. Well, gee, I wonder why, right? Because that goal isn't coming from you. It's coming from something that you're pulling from some other part of your life, or an expectation that someone else has been imposing on you. Gee, it sure would be nice if ... Maybe that goal isn't actually that important to you. So when I'm discussing goals with a client, some of the first questions I ask are, why? What's motivating this for you? How will your life be different if you achieve this goal? How will it be different if you don't achieve this goal? Why is this goal important to you? How willing are you to do what it takes to achieve this goal? Where is this goal coming from? We do lots of exploring around the why, around what's motivating the goal, because when you get clarity on that, then you may even discover that it's not actually that goal that you want to achieve. Maybe there are other goals that you can achieve that align better with what you actually want for yourself. Usually we want a feeling. We want to feel about ourselves a certain way. That's actually what often motivates our decisions. They're emotionally driven. I will feel good if I achieve this goal. Well, what maybe you're actually looking for is feeling valid, is feeling good about yourself. The goal isn't going to do that necessarily, right? That's going to take some internal work. So all those questions are kind of why I do some exploring whenever I'm talking with a client about setting goals, because I want to understand what's really motivating this goal, because it's ultimately not about the goal. It's about you and what you're experiencing and what's important to you, the feeling that you want to create for yourself, what's happening for you internally that you've externalized into this goal, that, oh, my life will be solved if I can achieve this goal. I will be better, or I will feel valid if I achieve this goal. That's where we do some exploring, and that's where some powerful coaching can happen, because we really explore what's going on for you that's driving that. Okay, so step 2. Let's assume we've done all that work and we've identified a goal that aligns with your values, that aligns with who you truly are, it aligns with what brings you joy. So now we break it down. Now we look at that big overarching goal. Maybe it's grad school, or maybe it's getting a new job, or maybe it's, going on dates and you haven't been dating, whatever it is, whatever area of your life you're looking at. Now we break it down into bite-sized chunks. We've got to do that. One of the reasons that people fail or don't achieve their goals is because they're these big, giant, grand ideas that they have trouble then figuring out even where to start. It quickly becomes overwhelming, and then they sort of give up because it's overwhelming, or maybe there's fear, or they're not quite sure what to do next, or whatever. So we take that goal. Let's take the grad school goal. You want to get into grad school. We break it down into teeny, teeny, tiny morsels that are achievable for you. So let's say, and you can set a timeline with it too, right? So let's say like 3 months from now, you want to get your grad school applications in. So we start backing up from there on that timeline, and break down all of the sequence of events that need to happen for you to achieve that goal, right? If the last step is hitting send on the application, or mail it, or putting it in the mail. I'm even having trouble saying it. Do people still mail things? You put your application in the mail, right? And so if that's where you want to be, 3 months from now, if we back up from there, let's break down the steps that it's going to take to achieve that. There's a whole bunch of steps, right? Maybe you don't even have the application in hand, right? So you've got to get the application. You've got to take a look at what are the requirements. You've got to talk to your references and get people to write letters of recommendation for you. You've got to think about the essays that they may want you to write, and start carving out time. So it suddenly becomes like you're managing your own project. You're like a project manager. Many of you are project managers at work in some way, shape, or form. And so you're used to, okay, if we want to achieve this goal by this certain date, let's back up from there and start looking at all the steps that are going to be required to achieve that goal. Well, same thing in your life with any of these goals. The grad school application is the big overarching goal, but we break that down into the bite-sized action steps. And one of the tools that we can use to do that is an acronym called SMART goals. I use SMART goals a bunch with my clients because it's just a useful technique to breaking those goals down into something that is actually achievable and measurable that you can do. You can Google SMART goals. It's an acronym, SMART, and there's a couple different versions of it, but by and large, it breaks down into this. Make sure that the goal that you're setting for yourself, or the action step, the to-do list item that you're setting for yourself, follows this acronym. It's specific, right? So it's not just, I want to be in shape. It is, no, I want to go to the gym a certain number of times this week. Let's get really specific with the goal we're setting. So first is specific. Make sure they're measurable. This is the M in SMART in SMART. Make sure they're measurable. How are you going to measure your success? This is one of my favorite kind of zeroing in questions that I get into with clients when they're setting goals for themselves. Say you want to, go to the gym this week. I want to feel more fit this week. Okay, great. How on earth are you going to measure that for yourself? Is it how many times this week you're going to go to the gym? Is it how many hours a week, how many hours you're going to spend exercising? How are you going to measure your success? And it's usually like, there's a couple different ways that's broken down. Is it number of things, right? Is it like, I'm going to call 5 people? Or is it amount of time and duration that you're going to spend on the thing? I'm going to do this thing for a half an hour. And sometimes if you're having trouble kind of nailing down what metric you're going to use to measure that success, flip it. Change the metric, right? So if it's like, I'm going to call 10 people and reach out to them about a question that I have. I know we're not exactly in our grad school application metaphor anymore, but if your goal is like, I want to network more, And your goal is to call 10 people. Okay, well, how long do you think it'll take you to call 10 people? Oh, well, maybe that's a lot of people and I don't really have that much time this week. Okay, great. So let's break it down even further into a measurement that's going to serve you. So maybe I'm going to call 3 people this week. I'm going to call 1 a day for 3 days. I'm going to call 1 person on Monday. I'm going to call 1 person on Wednesday. I'm going to call 1 person on Friday. Let's change the metric to best serve you. Sometimes it's time. Sometimes it's quantity. Sometimes it's a feeling that you get. I'll know I'll have done this thing when I feel a certain way, right? So there's lots of ways of creating the measurement of the thing, but it's got to have some way of measuring that you did the thing. How will you know you'll have done it, right? Okay, so the A in the SMART goal is it achievable? Is it actually something that you can do for yourself? If it's like, I'm going to go to the gym 100 times this week, well, how achievable is that for you, right? Given your physical health and the amount of time that you have. So let's make sure that it's actually like actionable, achievable, that you can actually do it for yourself. Is it reasonable? So this is the R in SMART. Given everything else you have going on this week, how actually realistic and reasonable is it that you can do the action step that you're creating for yourself, the goal that you're creating for yourself? How much time do you have to make those phone calls? How much time do you have to work on the essay that you want to write for your grad school application? And let's be realistic about assessing that for ourselves. One of the reasons that we often fall short of the goals we want to achieve is because we think we can do like a zillion things at once, and we're not accounting for the fact that we're human beings and that physics exists and that time exists a certain way, and there's only a certain amount of time in the week and we can only be in a certain amount of places at once. So I really invite my clients to, aim big, and then let's go like maybe the minimum of that, and then maybe let's find a happy middle with all of that, right? So if it's, I'm going to send 10 applications out this week, okay, how realistic is that? Well, I've got to work, and then I've got family, and I've got life, and so maybe I can't actually send 10. Okay, what would be the minimum number of applications you could send this week that would be okay for you, that would be satisfying for you? Well, I guess like 1 or 2. Okay, cool. And then what might be a little bit of a stretch, right? Oh, well, I could probably do 3. I've got some time on Saturday. I could do 3. Great. Now we find a realistic middle that actually is achievable for you with that R in SMART. And then the last letter in the acronym SMART is T, which stands for time. So make sure it's time oriented. By what date or time are you going to achieve this goal? I like going even further than that and actually scheduling when you're going to put in the effort. So a lot of times clients will be like, oh yeah, by the end of January, I'm going to do this goal. Okay, when in January are you going to do it? Well, I don't know, sometime by the end of that weekend. That's going to be tough because it's going to slide and wiggle around, and suddenly it's going to be the end of January and you're going to be like, oh my God, I haven't spent any time on this thing. So when I'm goal setting with my clients, they laugh sometimes because I get so specific with it. They say, okay, well, I have time this weekend to do it. Great. When this weekend are you going to do this goal that you are setting for yourself? Well, how about Saturday morning? Great. What time on Saturday morning are you going to do it? Well, when I wake up. Great. What time are you going to wake up and do this thing? So we drill it all the way down to like 10 a.m. on Saturday morning. I'm going to spend 1 hour doing this thing. I will keep myself accountable by setting an alarm on my phone. I will tell my friend or my partner that I'm going to do it. I will celebrate with them. We'll get to celebrating in a second, but I go so micro level with it because I want to leave no wiggle room. I want to leave no vagary about when and how you're going to achieve this thing that you want to do. When we leave wiggle room and vagary, that's one of the things where our fear can sneak in, our overwhelm can sneak in, other priorities sneak in, and suddenly we didn't do the thing. So I get really, really specific. I make my clients set appointments with themselves about when they're going to check the action steps off their list. Because if we don't, it's too easy for us to slide to not do the thing. And then we're back to square one, right? Now we're back to feeling like we can't achieve our goals, we're really bad at goal setting, whatever. You're not. Maybe you just don't have the tools and the practice yet of getting this minuscule with it, of this microscopic with it. You can absolutely achieve whatever you set your mind to doing. You can. Sometimes we just need to break it down into these little bite-sized chunks. Another thing that sometimes gets in our way of achieving our goals are what we call roadblocks. Sometimes those roadblocks are external. They're out there in the world. Someone didn't return our call, or we got rejected from something that we put energy towards, or something like that. Sometimes our roadblocks, though, are internal. They are feelings that we might have. It's fear, or it's overwhelm, or it's anxiety, or things like that. So one of the questions that I ask clients when they're setting out goals for themselves is, what might get in your way of achieving this goal? And it can be useful thinking about that ahead of time so that you can plan for yourself, how do you want to respond and show up when that roadblock shows up for you. One of the things that we do in coaching is we kind of unpack what that roadblock is, so that it's no longer a roadblock, so that you can work with it or change the energy around it, or move through it in a way that is successful for you. So it can be worth thinking too about, like, what might get in my way of achieving this goal. If someone is planning a task for the week, I will sometimes ask, what might get in your way? Well, if my kids don't go to bed on time on Wednesday night, then that might get in the way of the time that I designated for this goal. Or, I might just get kind of scared and overwhelmed, and I might not. So we talk about how will you respond in those circumstances. What's your plan B? What do you need to navigate that, or to protect the space that you're creating for this goal? How can you, maybe bring resources on board your team? Maybe your spouse or your partner can take care of your kiddos if they're having trouble going to sleep during the time that you need to get this thing done for yourself. Maybe they can take that ball and run with it for you to support you in this goal. So we can bring resources on our team. We can think through plan Bs, plan Cs. We can think through alternate times. Well, if I can't do it Wednesday night, then maybe Friday morning I've got some time to do this goal. So you can kind of create contingency plans for yourself so that nothing gets in your way of achieving your goal. It's so easy for us to say, I wasn't successful because of this, or I couldn't do it because of this. And then that sort of plays into the part of us that kind of wishes we weren't moving forward and making progress, the part of us that wants to stay safe and hide in the closet and not make change. We can kind of proactively or intentionally protect our forward motion and our ability to achieve whatever goals or action steps we're creating for ourselves in advance. So that leads me to the two questions that I also ask when I'm sort of wrapping up the goal setting process. How are you going to keep yourself accountable to achieve this action step, to do this thing? And so that could be anything from like setting an alarm on your phone, writing it in your calendar, telling a friend or a loved one or a partner that you're going to do it, and that there's an expectation of sort of an external accountability buddy. Love accountability buddies. So one of the roles we get to play as coaches is, I'm expecting to hear how this thing went that you said you're going to do the next time we talk. We got to have some way of holding ourselves accountable, and your style. Right? So some people need an external accountability buddy or some way of keeping themselves accountable. Some people don't. Some people are like, once I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And boom, boom, boom. They check it off their list. Great. Whatever works for you. This is just an idea. So how are you going to keep yourself accountable to do your SMART goal and to check it off your list? And two, I love this question. How will you celebrate or acknowledge that you did this thing? This is such an important piece of the goal setting, of the goal achieving process. And I may even do a whole separate video on celebrating, because I don't think we do it nearly enough. I think we feel like it's indulgent, or it means we got to have cake or like go on a party cruise or something to celebrate things. There's lots of different ways of celebrating, and there's assumptions that we make that are embedded in the word celebrating. Celebrating could literally be taking a deep breath and just acknowledging for yourself, I did this thing. I did such a good job at this thing. Or it could be taking yourself on a walk, or it could be drawing a hot bath for yourself, or it could be telling a friend, or going and having ice cream, or it could be buying yourself something. It literally can be anything. But we make assumptions that sometimes get in our way of letting ourselves actually celebrate. So I like pre-planning a little bit, because it's a little bit of the reward, effort-reward dynamic that we can start building for ourselves. Once you achieve this thing, how will you celebrate? How will you light up the universe with your achievement? Oh boy, I have so much to say about celebrating, but I'll just say real quick that also the celebrating piece is important because it reinforces the idea that you are capable of achieving the thing, and then that energy carries you forward into the next thing. So it's not just self-indulgent and selfish to celebrate. It is actually building the neurons and the pathways in your brain that tie effort with achievement, with then a capability for the future of what you're capable of in the future. So it's not just a frivolous, fluffy thing and like cake and candles, which is great. Go have some cake and candles. It really is building the synapses in your brain that say, when I put my mind to something, I do the thing, and now I have evidence to support that. Look at the thing I've done, and look at what I can do. Look at what I'm capable of. And it's fun to do these things because I get to celebrate when I do these things. I'll do more on celebrating on another video, but I do think it's a really important part of the goal setting, achieving cycle that we go through. We've got to acknowledge and own what we did. We can't just blaze now onto the next to-do list item. That's shortchanging ourselves, and it makes it harder when we want to start doing more and more things, or maybe more challenging things. So please don't shortcut the celebrating moment about all of that. So another thing that we do is we kind of look back at how the week went, right? There's the debrief experience. And so along with celebrating, along with holding yourself accountable, there's sort of the looking back, the debrief on how did that week go? What got in your way that week? What do you need to do next week to make sure that you get the things done that you say you want to get done for yourself? Any adjustments we want to make moving forward for ourselves? We can learn and grow and get better at setting and achieving our goals as we go. It's not a perfect set in stone process that you just execute and run with for the rest of your life. You can change and evolve depending on who you are at that moment, what the circumstances of your life, how you're growing and evolving, experimenting with what works for you and what hasn't worked for you in the past. So looking back at how the previous chunk of time went is an important piece of adapting and adjusting and saying, oh, okay, moving forward, I'm going to do some things differently. Maybe I need to put a note in my phone. I hadn't been putting a note in my phone. Or maybe I need to wake up earlier. Or maybe I need to go to bed earlier, or whatever it may be. We can adjust as we go. So part of what takes goal setting out of just kind of a one-time thing that you do and turns it into a way of being is some of that process. It can become a system. It can become a set of rituals that you do for yourself so that you're no longer working on setting goals. Now you're just working on plugging new content into your goal achieving system that you've got, plugging new to-do list items in. You've got the system down eventually. So then it's just feeding new things into it. So some of this is just finding the rituals that are going to work for you as you goal set. There's lots of resources on systems and rituals and goal setting, and you can Google it or find other videos on YouTube about it or look up articles about it and find the approach that works for you. So to summarize, when you're thinking about goals you want to achieve for yourself, get really clear on why you want to achieve that goal. Get specific about what that goal is, and then break it down into teeny tiny bite-sized chunks. And then walk yourself through the SMART goal process or something similar for yourself. Keep yourself accountable to doing them. Be realistic about how much time you have to do something. Be intentional about how you're going to measure your success with that goal. Be realistic about, is it realistic? Is it achievable for you this week? Is it reasonable given everything else you have going on this week for your goal? And then keep it time-oriented. And I recommend small chunks of time. Really break it down into the small bite-sized chunks. This week I want to achieve these two things, and on these specific days this week is when I'm gonna do these goals. I've got time on Wednesday night and I've got time on Saturday morning, and that's when I'm gonna do these goals. So really keep it time-oriented for yourself. Anything other than that invites in vagary and invites in overwhelm, and then the emotions get involved and the fear gets involved and the not quite sure what steps to take get involved, and it makes it harder for us to achieve our goals. So I say get as micro level with it as helps you, as sets you up for success. We're all about setting you up for success, not about making it so hard and overwhelming that you don't actually achieve the goal. Then what's the point of that? So the lofty kind of grand aim can be big, but then we break it down into these small bite-sized goals and we get smart about them. Those are my thoughts on goal setting. If you struggle with setting and achieving goals for yourself, drop me a line, shoot me an email. This is literally what I do for a living. You can achieve your goals. I believe in you. I don't even know you, and I believe in you. You can. Sometimes we just need a little bit of support to figure out how. Excuse me while I burp up my banana. We'll cut that out. Why is goal setting so hard?